There has been a series of coups in African countries like Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, Gabon, and Guinea. Interestingly, these are the very countries that export a significant amount of their raw materials and natural resources to European countries. Their corrupt leaders made deals with foreign companies, allowing them to exploit and plunder these resources in exchange for personal gain. As a result, these leaders grew wealthy while their home countries were left depleted. The military leaders, realizing the exploitation taking place, staged coups and took control of their country's resources. Initially, the West, including the US, considered these military takeovers as illegal coups. However, recently, the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, openly supported the coup leaders' fight to reclaim their natural resources. He argued that African countries should benefit from their own resources and that the West should not claim them as their own. President Ramaphosa has been vocal about his views on resource exploitation in various instances. Whether speaking at the United Nations General Assembly or at an African countries conference, his message has been consistent. He stated that Africa will no longer bear the cost of industrialization and development for wealthy nations, centuries after the end of the slave trade and decades after the end of colonial exploitation. During the 20th AGOA Forum, President Ramaphosa outlined his plans more explicitly. Addressing the US trade representatives in attendance, he highlighted Africa's significant reserves of crucial minerals, its vibrant and youthful population, substantial urban development, and an increasingly interconnected society. He emphasized that African nations are committed to fostering industrial growth within their economies and advancing along the value chain. The goal is to create more job opportunities, enhance the value generated within the continent, and improve the lives of over 1.3 billion individuals. In summary, President Ramaphosa's plan is to empower African nations to benefit from their own resources, promote industrial growth, and improve the lives of their citizens. He believes that Africa should no longer bear the burden of exploitation, and that the continent has the potential to create a better future for its people. President Ramaphosa's message is clear. African countries are now focused on benefiting from their own resources rather than handing them over to other countries. They plan to create a supply chain and invest in sectors to manufacture finished products instead of exporting raw materials. Ramaphosa envisions Africa converting minerals and metals into sophisticated industrial and consumer goods that have global demand. The goal is to generate more revenue by manufacturing consumer goods, such as batteries for the green revolution, rather than exporting raw materials. Ramaphosa also expressed Africa's eagerness to partner with the United States and other countries to promote an investment-oriented strategy. The aim is to diversify international supply chains by processing critical minerals within Africa instead of exporting them to Europe for manufacturing. Africa wants to manufacture consumer goods that Europe will buy, reversing the current dynamic. Ramaphosa highlighted the need for an early renewal and reauthorization of AGOA, African Growth and Opportunity Act, a trade preference program, to maximize its impact. He suggested expanding the range of eligible products and simplifying access for small and medium-sized businesses. Ramaphosa emphasized the importance of African nations charting their own foreign policy courses independently, free from the influence of global powers or blocs. Africa possesses abundant natural resources, including minerals like diamonds, gold, cobalt, and uranium, as well as petroleum and agricultural products. While Europe, with scarce natural resources, has leveraged African resources for its prosperity, Ramaphosa believes Africa should focus on exporting finished, value-added products. To achieve this, Africa needs to invest in domestic industries and allow new sectors to emerge. In summary, Ramaphosa's message is that Africa wants to shift from being solely a source of raw materials to a manufacturer of finished goods. They seek partnerships and investment to diversify supply chains, maximize the impact of trade preference programs, and assert independence in foreign policy decisions. Africa's vast natural resources can fuel economic growth and development if utilized effectively. Africa is known for its abundant natural resources, such as the rich copper belt in Katanga province and diamond mines in Sierra Leone, Angola, and Botswana. However, throughout history, these resources have not benefited the people of Africa. The continent has faced colonization and exploitation by non-African nations, leading to external pressures and a situation where raw materials are extracted without much benefit for Africa. This has contributed to conflicts and hindered development. Countries like the United States, Canada, Australia, France, the United Kingdom, and China have continued to exploit Africa's natural resources, resulting in the flow of resource value to these external powers instead of remaining within Africa. This has worsened poverty, despite Africa's wealth of resources. In fact, Africa is home to nearly half of the world's gold and 1/3 of all minerals globally. Beneath Africa's surface lies a wealth of mineral resources with tremendous value. In 2019, the continent produced nearly 1 billion tons of minerals worth $46 billion. Africa holds around 30% of the world's mineral reserves, 12% of global oil reserves, and 8% of the world's natural gas reserves. Additionally, Africa possesses 40% of the world's gold and up to 90% of its chromium and platinum, which are highly prized metals. It's surprising to know that all the metals and minerals required to manufacture smartphones are found in Africa. However, there is currently no African smartphone company that can generate revenue from these resources. Many electronic devices, including smartphones, rely on various minerals like aluminum and zinc. The global sales of smartphones have significantly increased, with approximately 1.5 billion units sold in 2021. Essential metals like lithium and cobalt, primarily sourced from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, are crucial for battery production. Tantalum is another essential metal used in electronic equipment. In summary, Africa possesses vast reserves of valuable minerals and resources. However, the exploitation of these resources by external powers has led to limited benefits for the continent and its people. The potential to manufacture finished products like smartphones using African resources remains untapped. Tantalum capacitors are commonly found in mobile phones, laptops, and automotive electronics. The Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda are the main global producers of tantalum, contributing to half of the world's production. However, despite their contribution, these countries only receive a small fraction of the total revenue generated by multinational companies. Petroleum and coal are abundant minerals in 22 out of Africa's 54 countries. Nigeria leads the continent in petroleum production, followed by Angola and Algeria. Gold, iron, titanium, zinc, and copper are the most produced metals in 11 countries. Industrial minerals like diamonds, gypsum, salt, sulfur, and phosphates are primary commodities for 13 African countries. The Democratic Republic of the Congo is Africa's largest producer of industrial diamonds, followed by Botswana and South Africa. Botswana is known for producing high-quality gem diamonds used in jewelry. South Africa generates the highest revenue from its mineral resources, followed by Nigeria, Algeria, Angola, and Libya. The problem lies in the fact that African countries primarily export raw materials instead of manufacturing finished products. This leads to a significant loss of potential revenue that could have been earned if the raw materials were utilized more wisely. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed expressed optimism about Africa's potential to become a powerful force in economics, politics, and society by effectively utilizing its abundant natural resources and demographic strengths. Sim Tshabalala, the CEO of South Africa's Standard Bank Group, emphasized in an opinion piece that African nations have the right and responsibility to harness their natural resources and develop their economies for the benefit of their people. In order to achieve this, it is crucial for African countries to move beyond exporting raw materials and focus on manufacturing finished products to capture more value and generate greater revenue. Sim Shabalala emphasized the important role of Africa's resources in promoting agricultural growth and effective urban planning across the continent. He criticized the approach that restricts African nations from using non-renewable resources for development, questioning the stance of those who impose regulations on the poorest African countries, as it raises concerns about human rights and development. Shabalala highlighted the need for the poorest countries to have the capacity to borrow and invest in energy generation and industrialization. He also mentioned that Standard Bank supports the inclusion of transition fuels like natural gas as part of middle and high-income countries' efforts to achieve a net-zero economy. A recent report from the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development emphasized the importance of African nations not solely relying on exporting raw minerals, despite their abundance in critical metals for batteries and electric vehicles. The report stressed the need for African countries to avoid being limited to providing raw materials only, as this could result in minimal integration into global supply chains. Several lawmakers in African nations, including Namibia, Zimbabwe, and Ghana, have taken measures to regulate their mineral resources. They aim to restrict the export of unprocessed mineral ore and refrain from exporting green minerals like lithium in their raw form, aligning with the objective of capturing additional value. The United Nations report highlights the potential for African countries to become primary suppliers of automotive parts and components, considering the significant reserves of cobalt, manganese, phosphate rock, and platinum group metals on the continent. The report also stresses the importance of fair mining contracts and policies that foster strong connections between large-scale mining and local industrial development. This would enable African countries to effectively participate in high-value global supply chains. The report suggests that African nations should establish agreements with automotive and battery manufacturers to gain access to technology and knowledge. In the meantime, they should focus on domestic processing as a smart strategy. It proposes making agreements with companies that can train the local workforce. The report also recommends introducing national incentives and regional collaboration to give local companies preferential access to mining products that should be utilized or transformed within the continent. This approach draws inspiration from the US Inflation Reduction Act. Furthermore, the report advocates for the creation of new mechanisms for vehicle financing to stimulate domestic demand for automobiles. It suggests consolidating automotive production through special economic zones and industrial parks, including a battery special economic zone focused on battery production. A recent example of such cooperation is the Battery Special Economic Zone, initiated between Congo and Zambia with the support of the African Export-Import Bank and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. The report emphasizes the need to support African nations in their negotiations of mining contracts to ensure fair value from extractive industries. The continuous reliance on exporting raw materials has been identified as a key factor contributing to structural weaknesses in African economies. Experts consistently advocate for value addition as a means to reduce poverty, enhance economic resilience, address unemployment, and tackle social inequality on the continent. Another study examined sub-Saharan Africa's raw material footprint over the past 2 decades. It reveals nearly doubled production and consumption levels between 1995 and 2015 across various material categories such as biomass, construction materials, and fossil fuels. Africa demonstrated a net export of raw material footprints during this period. The study highlights a significant 53% increase in the raw material equivalence of exports, underscoring a substantial surge in the continent's raw material exports. Notably, several African nations, including South Africa, Egypt, Nigeria, Algeria, Angola, and Ethiopia, witnessed notable growth in the raw material equivalents of their exports during this period. The report highlights Africa's significant natural wealth, including approximately 8% of the Earth's natural gas reserves, 1/3 of global mineral reserves, and 1/10 of the world's oil reserves. However, despite these riches, Africa is home to some of the most impoverished nations in the world. To address this, some African countries have taken control by implementing bans on raw material exports, which have proven to be effective. For example, Ghana's cabinet decided to ban the export of unprocessed minerals like lithium on July 27th, following the lead of several other African nations. This collective strategy aims to maximize returns from natural resources. Ghana's new policy, expected to become law by the end of 2023, aims to retain a significant portion of the value chain before exporting the final product. Namibia and Zimbabwe also made similar decisions, with Namibia allowing some flexibility. Zimbabwe's move to restrict the export of unprocessed lithium aligns with President Emerson Mnangagwa's vision of transforming the country into an upper-middle income economy. The alignment of African countries rich in minerals, such as lithium, with the global shift towards green technology is not a coincidence. Major automakers are increasingly focusing on electric vehicles due to environmental regulations. For example, the UK has decided to ban the sale of new petrol and diesel vehicles by 2030, and the European Union plans to ban the sale of new cars that emit CO2 by 2035. As a result, companies are concentrating on producing electric vehicles powered by energy-efficient batteries, which require minerals like lithium and cobalt, both of which are abundant in Africa. African nations are aware of their resources' potential and are taking control of their own destiny. This proactive approach is commendable. They understand that by utilizing their rich natural resources and focusing on creating finished goods, they can boost revenues, enhance the value of these resources, and contribute to overall economic growth and diversification. This shift in strategy demonstrates Africa's determination to shape its future and should be appreciated. The actions of African nations, led by the South African president and other leaders, will make a significant impact and leave Europe astonished. Firstly, African countries will establish a strong industrial infrastructure to process raw materials within their own borders. This involves setting up processing plants, factories, and manufacturing units that can efficiently convert raw materials into finished products. Additionally, African nations will form partnerships with technologically advanced countries and companies to exchange knowledge and technology. This collaboration will enhance their production capabilities and drive innovation in manufacturing processes. The next step is value addition, which entails processing raw materials to create high-value products that have significant market demand. This includes refining raw minerals, agricultural produce, and natural resources into consumer goods, machinery, or other valuable products. Simultaneously, significant investments will be made in education and training for the workforce. Offering specialized training programs and skill development initiatives will cultivate a skilled labor force capable of effectively managing complex manufacturing processes. African countries will ensure that financial support and access to capital are provided to local entrepreneurs and businesses to encourage the establishment and growth of industries involved in processing and manufacturing natural resources. Engaging in regional and international trade agreements will simplify the export of finished products to global markets. These agreements will provide access to larger consumer bases and create opportunities for increased trade and revenue generation. In the next step, African countries will diversify their product range by investing in research and development. This will expand the variety of products they can produce, leading to a wide range of finished goods. Diversification reduces dependence on a single commodity and minimizes the impact of market fluctuations. Isn't it true that Europe will face difficulties as more African countries, led by both democratic and coup leaders, join forces? Now, African countries are ready to turn the tables, and we will soon see the results. Whether we are talking about democratic leaders or those who came to power through a coup, they are all focused on making Africa great by ending raw material exports and manufacturing finished products. What do you think? Should all African leaders join hands and unite against the exploitation of African resources?